Ship's cook third class, Royal Wetzel, served aboard the USS LCI 70 during World War II. The initials LCI stand for Landing Craft Infantry, and LCIs have an incredible yet mostly unknown history.
I told you something the other day about the 65. We were in the same flotilla, 68, 65, it was flotilla 5.
Royal Wetzel joined the crew on December 9, 1943, and the LCI-70 fought in the Pacific Theater against the Japanese as part of LCI Flotilla 5. Award-winning author Zach Morris interviewed Wetzel several times about what life was like as a cook aboard a small LCI during World War II.
What did we eat? We didn't have no place to sit down to eat. The guys came around and they picked up a tray. I did a tray, I filled it for them. They go and sit down on a ready box or something like that. You know, on the deck. See, ready boxes is where you kept the 20mm magazines in. They call them ready boxes. They used to be maybe 3 foot off the floor. But that some guys used to sit on there and eat. That's where we had to eat. Of course, you didn't eat much. You always threw most of it overseas, overboard.
We had a moonshiner. He made moonshine. I don't know how he made it, but if we would have used life rafts, there was kegs on there with water in. He dumped the water out and put the moonshine in. That's where he kept his moonshine. He was from down around Louisiana, I believe, down in that area somewhere. I don't even know his name.
When you guys had to shower, how did you guys shower?
Shower? We only had one shower. And it was about 30-some on the ship.
Do you remember where the shower was located?
Yeah, it was in the head. Well, it was you know where the torpedo went through? It was right in that area. It was above the engine room. You're lucky you get a shower. It was salt water. They gave you salt water soap. It was, and you had salt water soap. You didn't take a shower too often. It was pretty hard it was 30 guys in one shower. I get around 30 we had. But it was only, the ship was small. I can tell you one story about it though. We had 2 colored guys aboard. We called the one Snowball. And the other guy was, he was on it before we got on, but they were took care of the officers. Snowball, he would never take a shower. So they told this other guy, this other colored guy, Jackson, and he took a brush and gave him a bath. The other colored guy would brush him with a brush. He was from down south somewhere. I mean, Snowball was from down there too. Jackson was a big guy. Snowball, he was tall and thin.
Wetzel was nicknamed the King of Kazoos by his veteran buddies, due to his tendency to grab the nearest kazoo and jam out to the first tune that entered his head.
I tried playing the guitar when I was young, but it didn't go so good. Now this one. I love to sing. In all the old familiar places. Yep. I was just looking at an old song sheet. You got the G.I. John. Yeah, I remember that. I didn't have no kazoo out there, though. That's what I used to like at the reunions. I used to take about 30 along every time I went. Every time I went to a reunion, I'd put them out on the table and people would take them. Yeah, the store here sells them. Well, you know, you just put it in your mouth and blow it.
And Royal Wetzel never forgot his best friends and shipmates.
Yeah, John, remember John Relay? And he was my best buddy. Him and I, we got along real good. Oh yeah, he's a good guy. But he died. He had 3 girls and a boy. You often see that picture of us guys in the Owl Bar. Well, that was right before I come home. And here we are at the Owl Bar. We sit at the bar. All those guys that came back at the same time. John Relay is on it. Clinton Pierce. You know, in this picture here, it's Quentin Pierce, John Millay, Patty Ryan, Randall, and me. We're at a bar. Patty Ryan. Oh my God, he was my best buddy. One of my best buddies. That was his nickname, Patty. I don't know what his right name was, but his last name was Ryan. That picture was all around.
When the LCI-70 came under attack by Japanese planes, the ship's general quarters alarm would go off, and each sailor would run to their assigned battle stations. Wetzel was assigned to a 20mm gun at the back of the ship.
Yeah, that was like an alarm. And that alarm that you had place to go, a battle station. A loud whistle it had. It was really loud. You could hear it. It's coming to me now since you're talking here. There may have been whistles all in different places. I don't know, but I was on the starboard side on a 20mm in the rear. There was 4 20mm. Two up by the conning tower, one on each side of the ship, port side, starboard side. And I was on the one in the back on the right, on the starboard side. And I was a loader. And a guy by the name of Smith was a gunner.
Sadly, Wetzel would see many of his shipmates lose their lives. Some died fighting, while others died from simple mistakes they made. In 1944, the Allies were moving closer to the Japanese base of Rabaul on New Britain Island in the Bismarck Archipelago. Wetzel shared a story about what happened to one of his shipmates while on patrol on February 22, 1944.
Do you remember that Whalen that got killed? Whalen? Eugene Whalen. He was he was a smart-ass guy. He only knew everything, you know? One of them guys. He got... I don't know, did I ever tell you the story about him? I'm going to tell you quick. We were patrolling St. George's Channel. And the Japs were at night. It was very dangerous. And the Japs was taking it from one island to the other island, but they did it at night on barges. So we shot up this one barge, and we got a hold of it, and we pulled it out of the channel. And this guy, Whalen, yeah, he thought he knew everything. So him and I went aboard this raft, and I seen there was Henry Ford wrenches on it. I didn't take any of them, but what he was looking for was a Japanese flare. So he got one. He found one, and it was a big tube, and there was a lot of little ones inside of that. So I said, "What are you going to do with that?" He said, "I'm going to take it apart and get the parachute out." Well, there was a gunner's mate. I was standing at a 50 caliber machine gun right outside the pilot house, and this gunner's mate was on one side of him, and I was on the other side of him. And it had a lot of little tubes in, a whole bunch of little tubes in it. So he took that one tube, he thought this parachute was going to be in there, and he went to open it up, took his pocket knife and went at the other and blew up on him. It blew his guts out. And I grabbed a hold of him, and he went down, and he looked up, he said to me, he said, "Am I going to die?" And then he died. We couldn't take him and bury him at sea. We wasn't out. So we went on Green Island, and we dug a hole, and the water was coming in as fast as we dig it, the water was coming in. We threw him in and covered it up, and that was it for him. That's all we could do. Yeah, he's buried on Green Island, right in the tip of Green Island. And John had a big note about that, about where he was going to lay. He kept a lot of notes. I remembered him from boot camp. We took boot camp in Great Lakes. I was in company 1026, and he was upstairs. There was two companies. He was up in the upper floor in 1027. When we got aboard ship, I don't remember seeing him on the ship. It was the Matsonia we went over on. And I don't remember ever seeing him there, but when I got on the ship, he was on the ship. Remember Leo Wilcox? Well, he was a very good friend of Leo's. Leo liked him.
During the war, the LCI-70 had 2 dogs aboard ship. Wetzel shared the story of how the crew got them from the natives on the Philippine Islands during the Battle of Leyte Gulf in October 1944.
There was a storm, and we put the bow anchor out, and we lost that. They put the stern anchor out, and we lost that. And we got washed up on that beach. I don't know right where it was. Anyhow, we was high and dry. We couldn't move. We had to wait for a tug to pull us off. And then we traded. I thought we traded the officers' clothing for the dogs. So he called it 1710. If you look at that picture of John and Zoot, remember we called him Zoot, Z-O-O-T, Tedesco. At that time, Zoot was a saying, sort of a saying like Zoot. It was a shoot. Zoot. You remember that? Well, we called him Zoot then. He lived in Pittsburgh. It was just like a big family on there. And they all got along good with Craycraft. But boy, nobody liked him when he'd kick that dog over. And then he didn't make it. He's one of them that got killed. Them dogs were pretty neat. We had a lot of fun with them.
On January 5, 1945, the LCI-70 was part of a convoy, a group of Allied ships on their way to the invasion of Lingayen Gulf in the Philippine Islands. Suddenly, the convoy was attacked by a massive group of Japanese suicide bombers, known as kamikaze pilots. One of the bombers made a suicide crash dive into the LCI-70. The kamikaze attack killed 6 of Wetzel's shipmates and left 9 wounded, and it caused 8 men to jump overboard into the water to avoid the crash.
And then January the 5th is when we got hit with the kamikaze.
On the other side was a 20 millimeter right across from us. And when we got hit with that plane, the kamikaze, Pierce was a loader. And one guy, he jumped from the 3-inch tub into the ocean. He dove in. And they were picked up right before it got dark.
Joe Ortez is the one that did the painting of our ship. We're getting hit with the kamikaze.
Well, I'm glad you called because that made my day. When we get together again, put your kazoo in your pocket. That's a polka. Aja kopi velen, aja zeishe moja, aja kopi velen. That's Polish. Okay, but